And Andrew's the general manager, I'm the head coach, but I can promise you in decisions as it pertains to personnel, I'll be involved. And we have a really good, have had a dialogue already about that. You know, Andrew talks about he gets a lot of free advice from his dad in acquiring players, so do I. Okay, so we got to make sure we listen to the right people, but it's going to be Andrew and I, along with a bunch of really good people in this building, making those decisions.
Do you feel like you've already had some fires to put out or some things to deal with from a sort of controversial standpoint with Myles Garrett being suspended? Already been an undue amount of that sort of stuff?
I don't think so, Mary Kay. I think this is the NFL. There's always going to be something around the corner. You don't know when you walk in the building what's going to come up. As it pertains to all of our players, though, I can promise you we're going to make sure that we're doing the right things on and off the field.
Welcome back to More Sports and Less Levine. Kevin Stefanski of the new head coach of the Cleveland Browns. Welcome back, and let's welcome in Dan Labbe, the beat reporter for the Browns here on cleveland.com. And Dan, good to hear Kevin expects something different in the NFL every day, because it's never more true than in Berea.
Right.
You know, that Jimmy Haslam and everybody has gone to great lengths to say GM, head coach, same page, same philosophy. It tends to make you believe it was even more of a mess behind the scenes than perhaps it was. We thought it was. We thought it was pretty messy.
Yeah, we did. And, you know, you look at how they've sort of put this together, and it does feel like this time around, at least, Jimmy Haslam stayed out of the way. He was willing to kind of clear the deck a little bit. You know, Elliot Wolf is gone, Alonzo Highsmith is gone, and he allowed Paul DePodesta to run this coaching search. Everybody that was brought in, you don't look at and say, well, he's from this spot, and he's from this spot, and this guy's a leftover, and this guy kind of has taken on more power in the organization all of a sudden. And everyone at least kind of came from the same spot, and it's all kind of lined up. We'll see what happens when games start and you know, the team goes on a 3 or 4 game losing streak or expectations aren't met. That's when things get messy. But for right now, it seems like Jimmy Haslam kind of stayed out of the way, let the process play out, and it feels like they have alignment, at least in February.
The thing that would concern me, does concern me, we have, again, a first-year head coach who's never been a head coach at any level, who has been a play caller for a little over a year, who was in one organization. There are some things that concern me, having said that.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. You know, we haven't seen him as a leader yet, but he's said all the right things. He hasn't really spent a lot of time talking about how great of a play caller he is or what his offense is going to look like. Most of what he's talked about has been culture, and what he's talked about has been that buzzword of the last month, alignment, and where this organization wants to be working with Andrew Berry, who is a first-time GM as well. That's a concern. But with Stefanski, at the very least, he's not really sitting here touting his play calling and touting his offensive genius. He's talking about culture, leadership, and kind of the things a coach needs to focus on, I think.
You did touch on Andrew Berry. Again, a guy that was in Berea, so he knows a little bit about what goes on behind those doors in Berea, and he came back. So what do you expect from him? He's pretty well respected in NFL circles, and I know you're the one that kind of had said that.
Yeah, I mean, he really is. And it's not just, you know, like the analytics community loves him. It's, you know, old school football guys love him. And he was discovered by Tom Telesco, who's now with the Chargers, was then with the Colts. But, you know, the Polians have said great things about Andrew Berry. He went and spent a year working for Howie Roseman, which is about as good an organization you can work with in the Eagles. So even though he's young and he's really only been in like 3 places, he's got a lot of experience from, and I even think that year with John Dorsey was big for him, because he mentioned it on Wednesday. He kind of not learned how to scout, but learned how John Dorsey scouts and that Ron Wolf tree and how they do things. And it is intense when you get in that film room with those Ron Wolf guys, how they watch tape from the guy who could be the number 1 pick to somebody who might be the last undrafted free agent. They watch them all the same. So I think he's been with a lot of people that have sort of expanded his horizons and kind of shown him a lot of different ways to do this job.
And you mentioned the Colts, and Polian was a guy that couldn't say enough nice things when the Browns hired him the first time. And I mean, that if people are concerned about Andrew Berry and the analytics side, there are very solid guys that don't like analytics that like Andrew Berry.
Yeah, and he's got a scouting background. That's what you like. This isn't a guy who, came from just an analytics background. He has a scouting background. It's how he broke into the league. And again, having spent time now for a year under John Dorsey, and the Eagles are a scouting organization too, even though they're very analytics driven. He has that mix that you're looking for between the analytics, what we saw with Sashi Brown when he was here, and kind of what John Dorsey was.
It's kind of interesting because normally, and we talked a little bit about this off air, normally everybody's all excited about, boy, this guy sounded great. He won the press conference. He did this. I think Browns fans are getting so numb to the change that now it's like, okay, let's see what he can do. I mean, there isn't the typical excitement and buzz, and maybe that's a good thing.
I think it is. I mean, we spent all last season, with Freddie Kitchens sound bites, right? If you don't wear orange and brown, you don't matter. All the way through training camp, everything he said was a sound bite, something funny, and then they go out and they lose by 30 to Tennessee, and the season falls apart before it even starts. I think with this, what I've liked from these guys is I haven't heard any of them stand up there and pump their fists and say, we're going to the Super Bowl. I don't even know if either of them used the word Super Bowl. Maybe they did. I don't remember. If they did, it wasn't that big of a deal. They just kind of laid out their vision for what they want to do. And just like with everybody, we'll see when the games start. But I felt like they weren't necessarily sitting up there just giving a pep talk. They were laying out how they see the Cleveland Browns organization and how it's going to work under them.
Is it drastically different? Their vision of it, is it a different dynamic than has been here in the past?
It feels like it. And again, I hate to use these words because it's the buzzwords that they've been using since January, but the focus has been collaboration and alignment and, information, using information to inform decisions, whether it's coaching decisions, personnel decisions, trying to gain that little edge that you can gain with information. So again, a lot of that is the talking points that they've been throwing out. That's sort of all we have to work with right now in February. We'll see what happens as usual when the football starts. But right now it does feel different than when they brought in other people.